welcome once again to one more business platform program. As you know, in this program, we aim our content at you who are small, medium-sized business owners, people who have between 10 and 200 collaborators who work with you. And what we try to do here is to pass on to you the very, very best in attitudes, behaviors, tools that you need, not only to survive today's business environment, but to thrive in it. We believe in thriving. You know, survival is absolutely the lowest possible bar. So what we want you to do is to be able to enjoy the opportunities that are available, to have the company that you want to have the success that you want to have. And we do this in various ways. You know, obviously, those of you who accompany the show know that I come on and share my experience of 25 years of global consulting, but we also scour the world to get the very, very best in thought leaders and business leaders and consultants, people who we think we can add value to you and to your organization. And today is absolutely no exception to that rule. I'm absolutely delighted that Gary Turner has decided to share his time, his expertise, his wisdom with us today. And Gary, first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming on. Please take a couple of minutes and just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know a little bit about who you are and the kind of work that you do.
No, thanks so much for the invitation, George. Very, very excited to be with you today. I also love your target market. I think it's such an important market. So I often introduce myself these days as a reforming human being. The reason I say that is someone that's worked within global corporate for over 20 years now, a range of chemical companies, sales and marketing businesses. But the reason I say I'm a reforming human being is I'm over time gradually realizing the importance of our humanity to drive better outcomes. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll explore that today. So I'm a reforming human being, a husband, step parent, doggy daddy since the pandemic. And, you know, the things I'm really fired up about, to be honest, are designing work and life in a way that allows us to show up as whole human beings, as not as separate parts of human beings. And that's probably pretty much where all of my energy gets channeled, George.
Wonderful. And what a great place to channel it. And absolutely something that we 100% believe in here, that you are one person, right? Living this one life. You have all these different hats that you can wear, but the business world, I hope is finally realizing that we've now shifted from whatever that industrial age was, right? Whatever that drive towards efficiency and command and control and whatever that nonsense was that didn't particularly work that well. I think the pandemic seems to have helped shift the paradigms that many of us knew were shifting anyway. Those of us who were involved in business transformation projects know that things were shifting anyway, but I see a big shift that the pennies are dropping for many people, that, okay, that way of working is not effective, and it absolutely will not be effective going forward in whatever the post-pandemic world looks like. Tell me a little bit about what's your view on the current and future scenario for business. I mean, what does it look like us hopefully emerging from this pandemic?
Yeah, so I can speak through two lenses, and again, I'd love to hear from your side as well, George. So if I take it two lenses, so one, I'm here as Gary, the individual human being, and then I can also speak from a point of view of working currently within a corporate. Yeah. So Gary's a human being with a huge global network. In these conversations, very often, we have reached that tipping point. I do think we have. I think there's no going back, and I think it's going to be harder work and more energy, George, to try and maintain what we've left behind the last 12 months than it is to let it go. So that's a really interesting challenge, but also sort of tightrope for a lot of people that are still sort of, no, but I think we can go back to that. I was making good money and I did have a nice life. And I think that's still possible, instead of going, there's all of this other goodness on the other side if you just let that bit go. So I think there's a real tension within a lot of people, actually. And I've navigated my own version of that over the last 12 months as well. But then when I look at it from a big corporate point of view, it's very interesting. And again, I'm speaking for me as Gary, not on behalf of my company. I have to really emphasize that. But as someone that works within an industry that touches every part of our lives, chemicals goes into everything, literally everything. And I would say I'm not necessarily sure, George, whether the authenticity is there to truly drive a sustainability agenda. I think there's still a lot more fear around the change that's required to truly transform. So your audience actually is a really interesting spot, because I think the innovation and the entrepreneurial zeal that your community is serving have probably got the most exciting opportunity right now to really be that catalyst for the next generation of corporation in 5 and 10 years' time.
I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. I think, I mean, we learn through pain or you know, through love. Most people learn through pain. Businesses, you know, I think are the same. I think what's going to happen is most businesses are clinging to that old business model and old mindset and hoping that it's going to see them through. And I think they're going to get swept away. I mean, I say to people, your business will not exist in 18 months. It will either be a new business or it will be gone. And they think I'm scaremongering, and I really don't mean to be. I think it's going to happen so quickly that whole markets are going to disappear, and big shifts in how consumers consume, how consumers want to live their life, how people want to live their life. I mean, big things like, you know, you're never going to get everybody back in the same physical building to work. And why would you want to? Why would you insist on a 2-hour commute from Stevenage to Oxford Street, you know, or from, you know, New Jersey to Manhattan, or from, you know, Sorocaba to Sao Paulo, when you can have literally a global workforce, you know, that can be working 24 hours a day, that can be working asynchronously, that can be, you know, we can do that these days. And I think there's going to be a huge shift in the next 5 years of deadwood businesses and deadwood quote unquote leaders, or let's say people in positions of leadership rather than leaders, just getting swept away because it's a tsunami. It's a tsunami. I mean, I'm interested in a little bit in, you know, leadership. I'm very interested in leadership. I'm interested in hearing your opinion on what are the leadership attitudes that you think set people up for success in the situation we're in today.
Yeah, it's a cracking question. So for me, I don't want to be a broken record today in our conversation, but it is our humanity. It's our innate humanity. It's our ability to listen with curiosity and empathy. It's our desire to be vulnerable and not need all the answers. You know, it's really every part of our humanity that's been sitting there lying in wait, but we've never unleashed over the last 100 years because we just didn't think we needed it. And by the way, why would we unleash that extra potential when there's a very few select people making exactly the life that they want? So like what's actually coming is, I think, vulnerability, awareness, empathy, connection, let's call it, you know, love, compassion, like our true humanity, that wholeness that you opened up with in our conversation today. That's going to make us so much more money, George, in the next 5 years, like exponentially. We talk about Moore's law of curve, technology. I think we're about to hit humanity's Moore's law's curve equivalent, because it's been so suppressed for so long. And again, the SME community are like the ones that are going to absolutely fly. So I'm super excited. What about you? What's your challenges or adds to what I shared?
So I completely agree. We spent 100 years trying to make human beings efficient. Right, and we're not efficient beings, right? You know, other mammals, you know, they give birth, right, and within a day, the children are self-sufficient. You know, our children aren't self-sufficient after 20 years. You know, you know, are any of us self-sufficient? You know, we're not efficient beings, and yet because of the industrial age, we try, you know, time and motion studies and total quality and process excellence, all that good stuff. But it got to the point where we're at the limit, I think, of human efficiency. And guess what? It's not really very efficient. And AI and all that other stuff can come in and do that. And so people say, oh, so you mean you're going to get rid of jobs? No, we're going to let people be people. We're going to let people do the things that only people can do. Collaborate, resolve conflicts, innovate. Now, that terrifies organizations that have been built up over 100 years, and leaders who have built their whole career on, I need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you need to do it a certain way. That terrifies them. But I think you're absolutely right. The exponential growth, right, is there in letting people be people, and realizing that you don't control people, but you can liberate people, and you can influence people, and you can collaborate with people, and people are going to make. I think that's a really important point that you know. I'm a capitalist like you are. I want businesses to be successful. Now, I'd like to define success in as broad terms as possible. I like it to be sustainable success. I'm not talking about, did you hit your numbers this quarter so that one shareholder can be happy. I think that's an incredibly narrow definition of success. But I want sustainable, successful businesses. And I think it's important for the audience to know that that's where we're coming from. We're not saying, you know, Gary woke up one day and saw a tree and thought, isn't that beautiful? Let's change capitalism. You know, no, it's like, this is what is going to make you successful, and everything else just isn't going to make you successful. Because I think sustainability is important. I don't know if you find this in your life. The way that people are working, most people, is just not sustainable. You know, trying to work 25 hours a day in a day when you only have 24 hours, and doing it 7 days a week, and every year, let's just increase the targets, Why? Because we need to increase the targets, and that's not sustainable, because you're not dealing with all of your stakeholders. You're not dealing with the interests of everybody who has an interest in your organization. You're only focusing on one tiny group, and even then only their short-term interest. So that can't possibly be sustainable. You know, I know one of the other areas that you're a big believer. I mean, and it's natural, right? When we talk about humanity, you naturally have to bring in diversity, right? Because we are diverse, right? No two of us are the same. How do you help organizations, and how do you do it in your organization? How do you deal with the discomfort of diversity? Because, you know, people being different is uncomfortable, and that's the beauty of it. But how do you help people get over that discomfort?
Yeah, so again, I can speak from both externally, like within, let's say, my wider network and the work organization. But first of all, I would say within the work context, my day job, as it were, George, it's about taking the lead. It's having courage. It's actually realizing that asking curious questions from a place of interest and care, and not from a place of judgment. And this is a really important distinction to make. Every single human, whether they're black, brown, disabled, you know, however they identify, want to be seen as that whole human being. And you can only understand another human being that doesn't look or sound like you if you ask questions. They don't need to be perfect questions. So part of the way I do this, like I say in my own network, but also in the workplace, is to say, look, have you asked X what I identify as they, them? Have you ever actually asked them? Instead of going like, oh, I don't know if we should have all these different identities, and, you know, what's wrong with just having like him and her? Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's complex. It is complex, but human beings are complex. So like, if we try and distill human beings into 2 boxes on a form, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. So for me, it's all about curiosity, George. It's all about empathy. It's all about non-judgment. And I'm work in progress on this every day. And I think they're really the starting point for me, is trying to get away again from this mechanistic mindset of, there's like, let's start with the end in mind. That in and of itself is well intentioned, but you're basically saying there's a right end. Whereas what we should be saying is, we intend to reach X after 3 years. If we don't get there, our self-worth is not attached to it. We're not good or bad whether we get there or not. On the journey, we then will embrace that diversity. We'll ask who's got ideas, what's your experience. But I think we've got to be really intentional about what is the language we're using. Are we reinforcing this outdated mechanistic paradigm, or are we inviting curiosity in?
Yeah, completely agree. And curiosity is easy because it's free, right? It doesn't cost anything, but
it's fun.
But you have to get over yourself, right? You have to get over yourself of the, I need to have the right answer. I need to prove who I am. I need to, or people need to, people are just pieces on my chessboard. And all these mindset, limiting mindsets that the businesses have. That's not what anything looks like anymore. I mean, you look at any organism, and businesses are an organism, right? That's not how organisms work, right? They multiply, they die, they grow, you don't control them. And so you need to look at, okay, how do we influence? To me, that's the big shift, is the shift between the illusion of control to the power of influence. You want to influence people, and how do you become influential? You become influential, in my mind, by having a vision that other people want to share, right? It can't just be your vision, because who cares about your vision, right? It has to be a vision that other people see themselves in. And then you prove that you have something within you that helps us achieve our shared vision. That makes you influential. And if you're influential, you can change the world.
Wow, beautiful. I really want to bring this down to like practicality as well for your listeners. Is you can change every single person, no matter what their role is. And I want to stay away from position, because position is hierarchical.
Yeah.
The functionality of every single role is influential.
Yes.
So you can have someone that's actually at the till in a supermarket who sees the same person week in, week out, and that person knows the trend. They know what works well. They're telling them what the shelves are stacked like, how much more their experience could be so much better. Does that till person ever get asked their point of view? Yeah. Because they could be so influential. Yeah. And it goes right throughout every part of the business. So I really wanted to hold that space as well. When we're talking influential, we're not talking about hierarchy influential. We're talking about that everybody can be influential.
Well, and I would take it a step further, because I know that some people are thinking, oh, well, it's okay because my platform does this for me now. I get all that data. And it's like, okay, yes, you do. You can get all that data. You know what's happening, and you've got all this big data, right? That's wonderful. So let's look at then what the human being brings that the big data doesn't bring, right? And so when I get a team together, how are most teams formed? Most teams are formed based on functional knowledge. Oh, we need someone from marketing, we need someone from sales, someone from design, and someone from quality. Okay, you might need that information, but here's also what you need. You need someone who's great at coming up with ideas. You need someone who's great at shooting holes at the ideas. You need someone who's going to be the glue that keeps the team together. You're someone who's going to dot the I's and cross the T's so that the ideas get implemented. And they can be the same. They are the same person. The whole point of what you're talking about, bring your whole self. So the person's on the till. Can they bring you information about what the customers are saying? Yes. But they can also bring the fact that they like interacting with people, or they like routine, or whatever it is that they have as a person. They bring that, and that's free. And that's what businesses are not tapping into. They're not tapping into those inherent personality traits, motivators, and experiences and points of view that we all bring by necessity, right? But we can't divorce ourselves from them. So we all bring them, and all you have to do is tap into it. And that's where the curiosity comes. It's like, okay, Gary, you work on the till, you've only been here for a month, but you've got 40 years worth of experience as a human being, right? And you've got a viewpoint, and you've got, so throw all that on the table, and let's see how we can use that. And people think I'm some sort of genius. I walk into Johnson & Johnson and NASDAQ, and we do these big transformation projects and culture change and integration of acquisitions, and it's like, my God, how did you take this dysfunctional team and make them functional? Or how did you take this team of hypos and make them even better? It's like, we just added the bit that you guys weren't using, right? It was the stuff that was there that you weren't using. We just allowed them to help use it. And people, people think I'm joking with this stuff, but it might not be easy, but it's simple. It's not complicated, this stuff, is it? I mean, it's real simple stuff.
It's simple stuff, but it requires intentionality, and it requires it not being about you.
Yeah.
And that's the big shift as well. Yeah, is actually for me to get the best out of my team, both whether they report into me or we just work together. I've got to be in it for the collective good, not just for myself. And that's a massive shift for a lot of people at the moment. That's been a massive wake up during the pandemic. I don't know if you challenge or build on that, George.
I think it is. I think to me it's connected with this whole thing. I mean, I'm a huge believer in systems thinking, and you know, I everything is connected to everything else, and I think businesses forgot that. And I think, you know, going back to my point about, you know, let's care about the short-term interests of our major shareholder. It's just, I mean, it's not even a blinker. It's a blinker on a blinker on a blinker, right? You know, you have your whole, literally your whole universe of stakeholders, and if you're not adding value to your end users, if you're not adding value to the collaborators who work with you, if you're not adding value to your suppliers, if you're not adding value to your community, then you're going to suffer, because all of these people can and will impact your business. And I think that's a shift. I think people haven't realized, businesses haven't, I think people have realized it. I think us as consumers realize it. You know, a lot of what happened in the pandemic had its good side, which is it really separates the wheat from the chaff, right? Anyone can run a business when things are going well. Almost anyone can run a business, right? You can't run a business in the middle of a global pandemic unless you're doing stuff right, okay? And I think what happened was it made many of us reflect on, okay, so why am I traveling 2 hours to go sit in an office when I don't need to? And why do I need to be sitting at my desk at 8:30, you know, when I could be taking my kids to, you know, to therapy or whatever my child does, and I can do my work from 7 till 9 at night, you know, and also thinking about how businesses treated their people. You know, did they treat them as people, or were they just, oh my God, you know, we've lost 20% market share, let's just get rid of 20% of our people, you know, all those nice values that are up in the hallway, right, where they lived, or did they get quietly forgotten about, you know? So I think as consumers, or as people, we started to think about, hold on a second, I know the businesses I want to value, I know the businesses I want to help. I think there were some wonderful examples of, you know, people going out of their way to help local restaurants, you know, not even buying stuff. There's a guy on Twitter who's got a fairly big following, and one of his local businesses was going out of business. And what he did was he started a campaign for people to go online and buy a meal that would be delivered to first responders. Right? So anywhere in the world, you could go on and pay $15. You could buy a meal. You could feel good about it. The restaurant was saved, and the first responders who were dealing with all the COVID stuff got a hot meal. It's like, what a thing of beauty. What a thing. But I think as consumers, as people, we're starting to realize that. And I think some businesses are, but a lot of businesses are still, oh, our customers will come back when we tell them they'll snap back when we tell them, in the same way as our workers will start. And you've probably seen this in the US at the moment. The US are going, we have this labor shortage, and everyone's saying, you don't have a labor shortage, you have a minimum wage shortage, right? People are saying, well, I'm not going to come back and work for $8 an hour, right? When put my family at risk and this, that, and the next thing. When you just proved that as soon as there's any kind of downturn, you're going to get rid of us. So businesses are complaining. A lot of these businesses are complaining that they can't get people to work for them. It's like, well, yeah, because look at how you're treating people. Look at what you're paying them. You're not treating them as human beings. So I think businesses still haven't, that penny hasn't dropped for many businesses. But I think for us as consumers, or us as people, it's changed. I mean, am I reading that completely wrong?
No. I see it very much in line with you, George. And I want to add some extra spice to what you've shared, actually, which is, like, from an SME point of view, all businesses, but particularly for SME talent, like the talent was already ahead of the curve in terms of those that are under the age of 25, in terms of they don't want to just buy stuff for stuff's sake anymore. You know, they want to buy stuff because it's sustainable or even regenerative, or they know it's not actually extracting stuff from Mother Earth. Like, this is what the younger generation are looking for in their products. And I'm even starting, although much slower, to be going, okay, now where do I get my electricity from? Is it actually coming through a renewable source, or is it all just on fossil fuel from the guy that works in the chemical industry? It's all system, but it is all joined. And there's a real talent challenge with this for me as well, which is, yes, the consumer. I agree with everything you said, but I really want your audience to hold on to this point, which is, will you be able to access the talent you need as you scale?
Yes.
If you continue with the model that you had pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, to me, the only way of doing that is when you have a shared vision of the value that your organization brings. It's the first question I ask every business person, every business owner. Why does your company exist? And they usually, to make money. It's like, no, you're already failed, because that's a consequence of the value you add. What's the value that you add to the world, to everybody? What are we talking about? It's like, well, that's why your business will succeed. If you're adding value to enough people, the money will come as a consequence. And when you talk about scaling, I'm going to join a business where I'm valued, right? And where I can add value, because that's the human exchange, right? So if you say, here's our vision, here's how we add value, would you like to come and be part of that? I can say, yes, I do. And I know that you're going to value me because I'm achieving a vision that involves all of us. Therefore, it's easy to find talent. Talent's already there, right? Because you've got this vision of who you are, what you do, and they self-select. Right? Now, if you don't have that and you're looking for workers, of course it's going to be tough, because you're not valuing me. I don't feel valued. I don't feel I can add value. Who wants to live like that?
And I want to pick up as well. It's so good what you're sharing, because I want to feel valued. You can throw money at people and it's like a shot in the arm, but the following day it's gone. Even if you give someone that's on 20 grand today £1 million tomorrow, I guarantee you within 6 months they'll feel the same way they did when they were still on 20 grand if you're in the wrong place. And I think we still think that throwing money at situations is going to solve it. And I think we all know now, and the pandemic's shown that that's just not the case anymore, George. So
what do you see as the biggest issues for businesses transitioning, to whatever this new model is going to look like, whatever this future is going to look like? What are the big challenges?
The big challenges, I think, are it is linked to control. A lot of it is it's really organizing in a way that truly is more democratic in a way. So, for example, hierarchies. If you're whatever the size of your company, it's how do you actually get out of the way of your people to allow them to be brilliant.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't need a CEO. Doesn't mean you don't need a CFO. Doesn't mean you don't need a leadership structure. But we're definitely rapidly moving away from this. I need to go through 3 layers to get approval on X. Like, that's dying like very, very quickly. Good, in my opinion. But that transition is it's painful, and you can see it's painful, and there's a lot of people resisting it. But it's a shame, because on the other side of it is actually a lot easier work, a lot less friction, far more innovation, far more inclusion, and far better results.
Yeah.
So really, in summary, it's totally a mindset issue.
Yeah.
Totally a mindset issue, and normally from the people that are leading the organization.
I'd say that it starts with a mindset issue, obviously. I think there's also a structural thing. I had a really interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago talking about the people who have done research, the sociologists and that type of thing, so human interaction and that type of thing. And you probably know this, that they've crunched the numbers, right? And an ideal sized team is like 8 people. We can only really know about 15 people, really know them in depth. We can only kind of influence about 50 people. And the perfect organization size is about 150, right? Because once you get over 150, they say that you need to be less than 4 steps removed from everyone. So you need to know someone who knows someone who knows someone, right? And that's about as far as it can go. So when you're thinking about how you organize your business, You know, are you organizing? And that's nothing to do with departments. Businesses have to get departments out of their mind, because every company I know is constantly reorganizing, because they're like 18 months behind what the customer is actually saying, right? Because it happens so fast. So don't do that. Just form teams that come together for a specific time. It could be for 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, and then dissolve them. That doesn't mean you fire the people. It means that they're working with this client or on this project for however long they need that group of people. So you view your talent pool. We have 150 people in our organization. You have 150 wonderfully talented people. What should they be working? What projects should they be working on? Where can they add the most value? Forget the hierarchy, forget the functional background, forget everything. Just look at, how do we put together a group of people to solve this issue or work on this issue? And you work on this issue for however long this issue takes, and then you dissolve the team, put them back into the pool, and say, okay, what's the next issue? So you've got 10 teams, right? Or 15 people, or 20 teams, right? Working on all these different things, but just until they're needed or not needed. Oh, this problem's getting bigger, let's add a couple of people to this team. This problem's getting smaller, let's take the people out of that team and put them on something else. Not, and you must see this in your organization. So you still have people talking about my team, managers, talking about my guys, my team. It's like, they're not yours, my friend. You're there to help them be successful, right? And if you're doing that, great. If you're not, get out of the way, right? But they're not your people, your team. They're not my department. Departments shouldn't exist in my mind in businesses. We should form a team to solve a particular issue that's client facing, right? That's a demand from the client or a demand from potential clients in the future. So I think you're right. The mindset thing comes first, but I think there's a structural piece there, which is, again, it's easier for the SMEs, right? The small, medium-sized businesses. It's easier to say, oh, let's go to this like kind of squad-based, organic kind of project-based teams than it is for, Johnson & Johnson to do it, or NASDAQ or whatever. But, to me, that's the only way we can be successful.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize it is the only way, and I completely agree. There is a structural element to this, and I think you're speaking brilliantly to the self-managed approach, which of course is in line with nature. Like nature self-manages. Nature is diverse. So like there's definitely. I'm quite new to this exploration, but the last 12 months I've been really looking at this sort of regeneration space. But started with Laura Storm's great book, Regenerative Leadership, and as I dived into that, I was just like, oh my god. Like, why wouldn't we organize that way? So I think I really just want to reinforce your message that this isn't a nice to have, right? In 5 years' time, if you're not organized in the way that you just described, you're probably not going to be here. Yeah. Like, it's as simple as that, because people, and it's not just speed of technology, people will not stay around if it takes 3 months to get a decision on whether or not you can have a promotion or not. People go, why would I stay here? Like, when I know I can go and work for X company over there, who's got a brilliant culture, I can work 3 jobs at the same time. I'm building a portfolio career. I'm 25 years old and I'm traveling at the same time as working. And then the company you've just left is telling you that you've got to be there 9 till 5 in an office. Like, this stuff matters. And it's going to matter more and more and more.
Once a year, we will review your performance. That will then be sent to HR, who will consider the possibility of you being recognized in some way, shape, or just listen to yourself. I mean, it's insane.
It's insane. But it is insanity. But we've all bought into it. It's a collective illusion. I'm part of the problem, and we've all been part of the problem. Yeah. But we've now got, again, back to the pandemic again, as tragic as it has been on many, many levels. Back to that mindset piece, George. The collective belief structures that upheld what was acceptable is now gone. It's completely shattered. Now people will try and rebuild based on what was there before. Oh, there's my Lego house that's fallen over. I'm pretty sure I can rebuild most of that. And someone's going to come along and put their foot through it and go, don't be so ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, so let me give you a real practical example. I agree with that so much. But a real practical example, right? I'm working with a business right now in Minas Gerais in Brazil. Technology company, and we're doing digital transformation. They actually have to go through a digital transformation, and it's great, right? We're doing some really interesting project, great bunch of people. We're going to take 4 months, and it's going really, really well. But just getting them to break some of those mindset. So it's like a 4-month project, and we're actually going to finish on the 30th of June, okay? And we will not be late. There's no way that we will be late. So the team are meeting, and it's a team of 15 people, and they've done a fantastic job. They've researched everything. They've put the proposals together. They got alignment with senior leadership. They got buy-in from senior leadership. Now they're about executing, right? This was in April. And I said to them, look, it needs to be done asynchronously, right? You can't, 15 people trying to make a decision or do stuff just doesn't work, right? You know what needs to be done. Just go off and do it, right? And come back in a couple of weeks, and let's get back together. Let's realign in a couple of weeks. But you know what needs to be done. Just go off and do it. And they've had, in the first part of the project, they've had this weekly meeting cadence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and they said, all right, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, George. Let's do that. Let's put that on the agenda for next week. I said, no, you will not. I said, we're going to do it right now, and you're going to go off and do it. But we fall into that tyranny of Outlook, right? Outlook drives our world. Like, oh, we have a weekly meeting, so let's put it on the weekly meeting, and it's a 30-minute slot. It's like, well, hold on a second. What the heck are you going to do between now and next Friday? That's 168 hours multiplied by 15, right? And that's only the people in the team, not the people you can tap into. Now, yeah, you have to sleep and all that good stuff. But look at all those person hours, all that thinking that could be done, all that work that could be done. But your mindset defaults to, to think about this project, we do it in the weekly meeting, and the weekly meeting is not until next Friday, and it's 30 minutes because that's what Outlook predetermined. I mean, even breaking that mindset, I mean, you must see that in business all the time. I mean, people complain, I'm always in meetings, I'm always in meetings. It's like, why? And why are you not doing the work in between the meetings? Because meetings are fairly useless for actually doing work. They're good for aligning, and they're good for maybe collaborating and innovating if you run them well, but they're not very good for actually doing work. So, how do you make sure that there's that agility? And there's a tyranny. There is a tyranny of Outlook and Teams and Zoom and all that kind of stuff now, which is still driving people's mindset, which I think is destroying a lot of productivity. Do you see that in your
Yes,
day-to-day?
massively. And that's one of the downsides of the pandemic, has been that everybody seems to own everybody else's calendar.
Yeah.
So people are working longer hours,
Yeah.
longer days. Don't have the travel element you spoke to, which is great, but they're doing 12, 14-hour days from home.
Yes.
Which is not the point. Yeah. And I think part of this for me, so yes, absolutely see it quite a lot, but there's something also about accountability. So we can talk about leaders, we can talk about culture, we can talk about mindset, but what are we all doing at the individual level as the whole human being that we are to say no? Actually, I don't think I should be in that meeting, actually, George, because we did it every week for the last 3 weeks, and I've not really got anything out of it or contributed to it. Yeah. So at a point in time in which you want me back in, I'm happy to be there, but let's make sure it's valuable time. So there's also a personal accountability, which we don't talk about enough either, I think.
But a lot of it's being driven by the manager. Oh, I can't speak to my team every day, so I need to have a meeting so they can update me. It's the manager's desire for control or desire for information that's dragging everyone into these meetings that's destroying everything. But there's another piece there that I want to touch on. I think would be interesting for people to think about. And I don't know if you have this quite so much in the UK, but yes, we're global, right? We're 8 billion people in the world. We're global, and it's an issue in Brazil, and it's an issue in a lot of places, and it has to do with the empathy of a leader, right? Not only saying to people, stop working 14 hours a day, right? Instead of the opposite. It's usually like, oh, I sent you a text, why haven't you responded? But understanding that not many people on the planet have a house where they can have a home office, where they have a quiet room, right? where that they can work in. I mean, many people, I mean, if you're young in Brazil, for example, you might live at home and you might share a bedroom with your 3 younger siblings, right? And all that, you're used to going to work, and you make an effort, you dress up and you go to work and you're professional. And all of a sudden your manager wants you, oh, switch on the camera and whatever. You think, oh my God, I've got my 7-year-old younger brother here, and or you live in a place that isn't nice, right? And you don't want to feel embarrassed, or there's noise outside, or you're dealing with sick kids, or a sick mother, or whatever. If you're going to treat people as a human being, you have to treat them as a human being. Otherwise, what happens is people don't start working from home, they start living at work, right? In the same place, right? So you have to be able to say to people, I need to help you reorganize your priorities, understand your priorities, and yes, I give you permission, and you need to give yourself permission to say, I'm taking my son to therapy this morning between 8 and 10 in the morning. I'm not available. Now, I'm not going to miss any of my deadlines. I'm not going to miss any of my deadlines. But I'm not available at this time, or this time, or that time, or whatever, right? And leaders need to be empathetic to that proactively, I think, and understanding. And another thing that's just linked to that, and this is something I would say to businesses, is, again, with the empathy, don't fall into the trap of, oh, wonderful, people are working from home, we can sell the building, or we don't need to rent the building, we've saved all this money, great, let's all give it all to the shareholders and they'll be happy. No, if people working from home, pay for their infrastructure. Do they have solid internet? Do they have a backup internet if their internet goes down? Do they have ergonomic chairs? Do they have adequate heating, lighting? You've just saved hundreds of thousands of millions of pounds, euros, dollars, whatever, in not having to have the infrastructure. Invest some of that in your people, so that they're not working in a precarious situation, which is unsustainable, right? Allow them to be productive, and I think that, again, has to do with the empathy of understanding, I want to put my people in a position to be successful. That's my role as a leader, right? That's the only role that I have. And whatever it takes for them to be successful is what I need to focus on.
Brilliant. And something, I think you're bringing it full circle again. We talk about systems. At the end of the day, mindset, getting out of the way of your people, creating the conditions for them to flourish and to thrive. Like, that is the leader's role. It's not about the leader. And this is definitely part of, I think there's a causal link, George, actually, between getting stuck within that hierarchical mindset and the belief that it's about you. Like, those two things are closely linked. Yeah. If you think it's all about you as a leader, then you're going to struggle to let go of control.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So it's a really nice sort of self-check, that one, to look in the mirror and say, hey, am I thinking about my people? Am I removing roadblocks for them so they can be brilliant and therefore deliver better outcomes? If not, then there might be some development work to be done there.
And yes, and it always amazes me when people are, yeah, but then my people will get all the attention or whatever, or they won't see my value. It's like, are you insane? If you're such a phenomenal leader that you've just got this factory of incredible talent that just keeps churning out results after results after results after result, and everybody fights to get in your team and refuses to leave your team, the business isn't going to forget you, right? You're going to get noticed. So, I mean, seriously, trust me on this. If that's the position that you're in, right? I mean, I've never been in a company in the world. I worked the world over. I've never been in a company in the world where they've said, yeah, this person, or this guy, this woman, I'm not sure really what they do, but it must be terrible because, they just keep producing these great results and these great people.
I'd like to give you a very quick example, if I may, that even in big companies, you can actually deliver great results by doing exactly what we're talking about in this conversation. We increased sales without, funny, the number actually, 15 people, international sales team. Over a 3-year period, we increased sales by 6 million and gross margin by 1.5 million. Nothing else changed. Same market conditions, same people, literally by how we organized and how we collectively reviewed the values of the team, how we ran our meetings. We moved them from being all about 90% about metrics to being 20% about metrics and 80% about how do we remove the roadblocks, what's not working, who wants to take responsibility for it. So I just wanted to give that extra real life evidence case studies to what we're talking about, because I know it can get a bit ethereal at times. And I just want to say again, like, we're making more money as an outcome of us leading with our humanity. So I just wanted to share that as well.
Talk about sales teams, because, again, another mindset is, well, maybe that might work for HR or whatever. It's like, no, it works for people, human beings, right? And sales, right? The stuff that you care about, right? Not that you don't care about this other stuff, but the stuff that you really, really, really care about, right? The margins and the sales and all that good stuff. And I think that's a wonderful example. And I think it's important for people to know that. It's almost like we've reached pretty much the limit of how we can grow in other ways in terms of business, right? The technology is a commodity these days. There is no new technology that will come on board that won't be available to everyone almost instantaneously, right? Technology is just a complete commodity, right? It's not going to make the difference. What's going to make the difference is, can you, and we already talked about efficiency, right? I would say we're beyond the level of human efficiency capabilities right now. We're actually, we're going to drop a little bit. But I think the only place that you can unlock growth is through the untapped potential of the people. And yes, it's scary, because yes, it's different, and yes, people are complex, and yes, you don't control, but get over yourself, right? Get over yourself as a leader. I keep saying to leaders, why do you think you get paid the big bucks, right? You think you deserve the money that you get paid as a leader. Other people might disagree, but you think you deserve it. It's not because you're better looking or because you work harder. It's not. It really isn't. I'm sorry to break that to you. Your mother might think it. Only your mother thinks that, right? It's not because you're better looking or work harder, right? So, as a leader, it's time to understand what is your role, and to have the humility to understand that your role depends 100% on the success of your people, not 99.5%, but 100% on the success of your people. And if you don't see that, you're already setting yourself up for failure, right? And not only yourself, but your team as well, and probably your business. So, earn that money, earn the money that you have, and learn how to do it. Learn how to deal with the messy, complicated, emotional, irrational, beautiful human beings, right? That will actually give you the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's so compelling, right? Like, on the one side, you could say, yeah, this all sounds a bit scary, etc. But I just want to add another thing, right? Think about the engagement stats. Everyone keeps parroting them. Yeah, 1 in 3 being fully engaged. I want to hold space for a second, George, right? That means for every pound in the UK that we spend on salaries, we're putting 67 pence in the pound down the drain in terms of potential.
Yeah.
That's the reality, right? So if you spend $1 billion on salaries every year as a global corporation, for example, 2/3 of that is going straight down the drain. Yet the people that you're already paying money to for salaries are the people that can give you 10x that value back if you just listen to them, include them, see them, bring them into the fray in a transparent way. So it's like it's mind-bogglingly simple. Back to your point you made earlier on, and I don't even think it's that hard. No. It just requires dropping some of those outdated beliefs and truly leading with your heart and not just your head.
I think that's it. That's it in a nutshell. And the business case is so compelling. And here's what I always say to business owners: if the model that you've got is working, run with it. If it's giving you the results that you want in a sustainable way, and you've got the talent pool that you want, you've got the customers you want, you've got the growth that you want, you've got the margins you want, run with it. I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. It's your business. If it's not, and any one of those indicators, if it's not, then you have to change. Not because what you're doing is wrong, it's just not working. right? If you're on a diet, you're not losing weight, it might be a perfectly good diet. It's just not your diet. So do something different. And I think that's what businesses need to. Businesses insist on doing stuff that they know doesn't work, and it's like they double down. Maybe if we do 2x, it's going to get better. It's like no, doing 2x just makes it twice as bad. Let's do 4x. No, 4x just, it's like at some point you have to be able to step back and say, all right, we want it to work, we'd like it to work, we think it should work, but it's not working. And once you accept that, it's so much easier to go through this beautiful door on the right hand side, which has all this wonderful, instead of banging your head against this door that's closed on the left hand side with blood dripping down your forehead, walk through this open door on the right hand side. It's just got the green fields and the mountains and the beaches. It's your choice, it's your business.
Honestly, you're really tickling me with that statement, because it is literally just, I've got an image of an old British cartoon from the 70s where you've literally got a plank of wood on your head just going like that. Just like continuously, just because you don't want to look at the obvious stuff that's going to make it so much easier and better for you. No, I like the pain. I really like it.
This time it will work. 500 times a charm.
But I empathize, but I also like how in your head must you be, or how scared of something are you to want to be in that much pain?
Yeah.
So there's an invitation there through this conversation as well for those that might be going like, please stop mocking me, George and Gary, like I'm really struggling with this stuff. It's like we empathize with that. Like if you really prefer the pain over the discussion towards moving towards more human-centered work, to therefore getting better results, get yourself a coach.
Yes.
Go and have a conversation with a friend. Truly try and understand what that barrier is in your head. Yes. Because there is so much goodness on the other side of that barrier. So I just wanted to put that in as a bit of an empathetic sort of reflection as we flow.
I think that's right. And I think the other thing I would do, and this requires a tiny leap of faith, not a big leap of faith, a tiny leap of faith. My experience, and Gary as well, right? We've been doing this for a long time, the world over, right? People want to collaborate. As human beings, we're built to be social animals. We want to help, we want to contribute, we want to collaborate. That doesn't mean that everybody's helpful all the time, right? That's not what we're saying. But at our core, we've survived as a species because we collaborate, right? And unfortunately, many business people got into the mindset of people are lazy, people are selfish, people just want to look out for themselves. There's probably a little bit of projection on their part, but and then you insist that everybody else is like that, and then so you paint yourself into that corner that you're talking about. So a tiny leap of faith. Sit down with your people, any group of people in your organization, your team, the larger team, whatever, and just ask them, what can we do to add more value? And I guarantee you something positive will come out of that meeting. It won't solve everything overnight. Don't worry about that. And people will still be people, and it will still be messy. But just ask them that question. What can we, as a group of people, do to add more value to the people who give us money, right? Something will come from that, and then act on it, an adjustment, make an adjustment, and then have a second conversation and take something out of the second conversation, and then have a third conversation. And before you know it, you realize that, not everyone's just out to, destroy your career, and not everyone's a psychopath who wants to kill you. You'll get into that mindset. But we do, senior executives get into that. People want to destroy my career, and everyone's conspiring against you. The horrible mindset situations that they get into. Just have those little conversations with the team. Take one little thing, make an adjustment, and keep doing that. And at the end of a couple of weeks, it will be different.
And I'm going to bring this brilliant insight to life. So I led, again, linked with Agile, Agile working. I ran some internal hackathons within my company. Right. So I brought together 40 we had some real dysfunction within our business where certain two teams weren't communicating very well. Blah, 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 it's their fault, international language barriers, all of this traditional sort of international challenges. Long story short, I brought together those teams in person when we could, 40 people, customer service, sales, product management, within 8 hours, George, just 8 hours across 2 days. We went through openly and transparently what's working well, what's not working well. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you change and why? That team in 8 hours co-created over 50 ideas how to improve processes, work together. 40% of those were implemented the next day. They're the meetings people want to be part of.
Sure.
And it's in less than a day and a half, we solved dysfunction that's been going on for years. And I just wanted to give you that as a real life example of how simple this stuff is. Yeah. But again, it takes intentionality. You've got to want to hear the answer to the question you're asking.
Wonderful. Well, and another great example. Thank you ever so much for that. Just before we wrap up, people obviously will be watching this saying, Gary is just great. We need more of Gary's stuff, right? And we need more of Gary's wisdom. How do we get more of Gary's wisdom? And I know you've got a podcast and things like that. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way of doing that? How can they share your wisdom? What's the best way of people to know more about the work that you're doing?
No, I appreciate that. It's a very, very kind, Jordan. Again, thank you for bringing me on. It's been a brilliant. I love your energy in these conversations. It makes a welcome change. So LinkedIn, you can find me, which is Gary Turner, Strategic Advisor. You can actually put in Gary Turner, Gariy Turner, into LinkedIn, and you'll find loads of my previous podcasts, Value Through Vulnerability. There's 138 episodes all about courage and vulnerability with different leaders around the world. Got a new podcast called Activating Consciousness. But the fun thing is, and this is a ridiculously funny thing, George, if you put in Gary Turner into Google, you'll see me and a guy that's got the stretchiest skin in the world, and he's got the Guinness World Record. So I'm not that guy. I'm this guy. And you'll find me there. And also GaryTurner.life is my personal website as well. So thanks for the invitation again.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you ever so much for your generosity. Thank you for the content, which is wonderful. Your generosity in sharing it with people, your enthusiasm and wisdom and insights. It's been absolutely fantastic. Hopefully, when people comment on this and send us your feedback, and we'll get back in touch with Gary. Let them know the feedback, and hopefully that means we can bring you back on sometime in the near future to do round 2. That would be absolutely wonderful.
Well, I'm looking forward to it already, to be honest. And you know what I most enjoy as well, to be honest with you, George, is that you come at this conversation from a very practical as well as experiential point of view, and I think that's definitely part of this future world we're stepping into as well. So thanks for role modeling the change that's coming. Well done.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching. Until the next time, good work. Thank you.